Welcome, children, to SpookBox, the horror movie podcast where the dining table is always a bountiful feast of hot, oven-fresh takes. I am your I am your host, Dav, for this week. I'm your host for this week, Dav, I should say. And here with me are two other lost souls wandering through the forest of film analysis. I've got Connor to my left.
Hi, Dav.
And I've got Heather to my right.
I'm your host, Daff. Sorry. Hello.
I don't have to do that again.
Your host, Dav, I am.
Podcast this is.
So this week, we're going to be looking at the 2020 film Gretel and Hansel, directed by Oz Perkins.
Oh, fuck that guy.
You're giving away the game there, but I'm going to start off with some first impressions. What do we all make of this film?
Connor's champing at the bit. On you go.
Film?
No? You know what? Is it a film? Is it a book with pictures? Like, hard to say. I just wanted a wee moment where I could look at some images and have a thinky thought without a voiceover. But
that's not this film.
Ozzy's tyranny extends far and he doesn't want that.
Yeah.
He doesn't want you to think. Mm-hmm. He's going to tell you what to think.
Sure. And
in such a witchy, very cool visual film, I just wanted a wee bit of space to breathe, you know? I felt Oz right over my shoulder the whole time. Like.
So this is the part when I decided to...
A bit of a nervous filmmaker.
Yeah.
A wee bit too much
a
control.
Backseat filmmaker.
A wee bit too much.
A passenger seat filmmaker.
I just needed him to just like...
Hey,
2 meters, please. Oz, 2 meters. Do you know what I mean?
You did a good job. It's okay.
This film's in incredibly poor taste given the social distancing rules. You know?
Yeah.
Or I'm doubling down and making sure everyone remembers them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Hey, everyone, 1 meter, please. What? Oh.
Hey, Oz.
Leave it out, mate.
Correct me. Right? It's 2.
It's
Thank
2
you.
2 meters. Oh, sorry.
2 meters. Connor, what do you reckon?
Well, I'm in the exact same boat there. I mean, I was just blown away by how much he relied on voiceover to try and tell you what it was you were seeing. The thing that it reminded me most of, and I mentioned this to Heather last night, and we tried to watch I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House.
Right, so we had a wee peek at his other film.
His Netflix film, I believe.
Yeah.
From
Same.
about 2015, I want to say.
Hi, Netflix.
Earlier than that?
You're greenlit.
Same shit, different day. Like, just same shit with Oz. He was like, here's your voiceover.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you a second.
The thing
with
I was
these images.
most reminded of was, have you seen Ed Wood? The Tim Burton movie.
The Tim Burton movie, yeah.
So you know the bit in that when Ed captures a bit of film of Bela Lugosi having a kind of a breakdown.
Yeah.
And he watches on in awe and thinks, I've got it. And you think, oh, maybe Ed has seen the error of his ways and he'll understand that this beautiful piece of cinema needs to be treated with respect. It needs to be kind of given its own grasp. But no, he instead uses it in Plan 9 to Outer Space and gives it this horrible, cheesy voiceover and destroys the integrity of the footage.
Yeah.
It's a great wee bit of cinema. It's maybe one of the only good bits of cinema from Tim Burton.
Well, I think we'll probably return to Tim Burton at some point during this podcast, to be honest.
But I was just so reminded of that, where I feel really sorry for whoever the cinematographer is working for Perkins, because they're an incredible cinematographer.
All the resources, yeah. Well, maybe not all, but some of the resources.
Yeah, I mean, all the resources that count, all the resources you need. You know, they've got beautiful camera equipment. They've got a wonderful grasp of how to use that equipment. Wonderful color grading. Nice
music,
good music.
Good music. I'm pretty sure Oz Perkins, whatever he's called, was
Perkins.
Don't know what.
Perkins.
Sorry, there's a shop called Dorothy Perkins. Just keep thinking of Dorothy Perkins.
Stay on target.
Sorry. I'm just, I was reading that he was also like scriptwriter with his mate. So he was quite attached to this
these
project.
Projects are always like that, aren't they?
But then that makes it clear there's no one to blame but him for the fact that there's just too much voiceover.
Exactly.
Too much. It's not like he was like, this other person's script was so good, I wanted to include it. It's his own. Do you know what I mean? So we have problems. I feel like we're back to episode 1.
Episode 1, yeah.
I mean, the hate
there will
strong.
be. I will say, if I get to it, I'm going to read out a little bit of a review for this one that I found online, and it is going to mention a film that we reviewed a long time ago. Not the first one we reviewed, but one of the first.
God, memories. Okay.
Okay. Let's jump into the summary before we tear it to shreds. I don't know.
I'm gonna be objective.
Daft.
I'm just echoing the sentiment in the room.
No, I think.
I'm wearing an Oz Perkins t-shirt. That's what you can't see.
I'm wearing a Dorothy Perkins t-shirt.
Okay. So summary. I'm gonna read this off in sort of chronological order, just because there's a detail that comes later on in the film, which is apparently very important. Although, reading back over the summary, I'm not sure how important that detail is, but here we go. So, a baby in a village fell ill and was not expected to survive. Her father took her to see an enchantress who removed the illness but left a power within the girl. As she grew older, people in the village went to the girl because she had premonitions of the future, but she used her power to kill people, including her father. The child was taken into the woods to be abandoned, but she lured other children to a grim fate. She is known as the Beautiful Child. We don't find out about this until the middle of the film, but it seems like this is like the earliest point. This is the earliest point in the film.
Is she in the deep dark world or the big bad world?
The big bad
world. The big bad world. We'll get to the big bad world.
The beautiful child in the big bad
Okay,
world.
so the story begins in some kind of indeterminate part of the world at an indeterminate time.
Good.
After their father's death, 16-year-old Gretel and her 8-year-old brother Hansel flee from their mentally unstable mother, who threatens to hack them both into pieces for being unable to find gainful employment. A ghoulish man arises and attacks Hansel. He is killed by a hunter who takes them to his home for the night and directs them toward others who can provide them with food and work. The following morning, the siblings depart to forage and seek work. They find hallucinogenic mushrooms that cause them to laugh hysterically. Perennial liability, Hansel stumbles upon a strange house in the forest, drawn by the smell of cake emanating from the window. Gretel follows and is greeted by Hulda, the old woman living in the house. She invites the siblings inside to eat and offers room and board in exchange for housekeeping duties. Hulda sends Hansel into the woods to practice his axe skills as Gretel becomes suspicious of Hulda's intentions. She sees a vision of the enchantress, remember the enchantress that I mentioned earlier, in a long black cloak, and hears children's voices guiding her somewhere. Gretel gets her period, and from that point forward, Hulda begins to teach her about her untapped witch powers. I put those in the same sentence because they seem kind of related, right?
I don't remember getting her period.
There is a part where she goes to wash her sheets.
Oh!
And I think it's implied that she has, yeah.
Because Oz didn't tell me it.
Yeah, right.
I didn't get it.
At this point, we've been spoon-fed quite a lot. But
even if he had told you, though, it would have been, there are times when we cannot determine what we do to ourselves.
The big bad world inside.
What are you on about, mate?
You can be sure that if we had been given this detail, it would have been sort of veiled in sort of poetic
cryptic
language.
Faux poetic. First year poetic.
Faux poetic, yeah. Hansel also sees a vision of the enchantress and spots an inverted pentagram carved on a tree. At night, Gretel finds Hulda's hidden cellar where Hansel is sitting in a trance. Some spooky shit happens, and a younger witch appears, emptying buckets of guts onto a table in the cellar before turning them into the same food Hulda fed the siblings. The next day, while Hulda is eating, Gretel sees her pull a strand of a child's hair out of her mouth. Through a series of visions, Hulda tells Gretel the truth about Beautiful Child, if you remember from the beginning. Well, not the beginning, but Hulda was the girl's mother. And because she resented her daughter for killing her father, she abandoned the girl in the woods. However, the child promised to share her powers with Hulda if she, quote, trusted the darkness. Hulda devoured her other children and took on the guise of an old woman in order to lure future prey. Hulda straps Gretel to a table in the cellar as she assumes her youthful appearance and lures an entranced Hansel into a cage so she can cook him. Gretel uses her witch powers to move a staff toward Hulda, pinning her above the flames. Her body catches fire and she dies, breaking Hansel's trance and setting Gretel free. Gretel decides to actually no. Gretel sets herself free from sort of pretty, pretty
leather,
flimsy-looking leather straps. To be honest, she sort of Hulk fists her way out of
The
it.
actress was doing her best to try and make those leather restraints look.
I am a fucking beast.
It was at that point.
All right, we're getting to the end. Gretel decides to stay behind the house while sending Hansel on his way on a horse. The horse brings him back to the family's old house, their mother now gone. Gretel sees the spirits of dead children, Hulda's victims, emerge from the trees, finally free. Her fingers start to turn black, just like Hulda's did. I didn't mention that bit, but that Hulda has black fingers. Her finger starts to turn black, just like Hulda's did, but she states that she will trust herself and hopes to control her newfound abilities and use them for good?
Question mark. Dun, dun, dun.
All right. That is the summary. I'd like to thank the Wikipedia page for helping me
quite
out with that one.
extensively. But did it have perennial liability on it?
No, I added that.
Because that was the best
He's
bit.
such a liability. I also left out that there is a bit where Hansel basically disappears for a little bit of the film.
Right.
Which I forgot to sort of put in there.
But he just goes for a wee walk, and then that's when she finds him in the
at that point. He just
basement
disappears.
or something.
Hi, I'm Hansel. Perennial liability. I love it. I want a business card.
I think it's the part where Gretel realizes exactly what Hulda's up to.
I'm sorry. We've joked many times about things to put on T-shirts.
Yeah,
but genuinely, I think perennial liability.
Liability.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It's an excellent thing for a T-shirt.
Okay, well, hit us up, Podswag. Why not? Get in touch. So that's the summary. I wanted to start off right.
Civilized.
I wanted to be civilized. Let's give this film the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
What do we like about the film?
I like that it had an ending.
You like that it had an ending? Classic.
No.
All right.
I think there's some really good stuff. I think the actress that plays Hulda is incredible. Like
the
her
Australian
performance
actress with
is so cool,
Dutch name.
so creepy. Her like Dublin accent.
the older version.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she
the
was
Hulda
very
that we
good.
see for most of the film. Yeah.
Right.
She was incredible. I loved the costume design. I loved the design of the enchantress.
Tattoos.
No, the enchantress is in the beginning. The one who puts the
one that Hansel sees
into the beautiful child. She
Yes.
puts the I don't know, the ability to live, but
They're
with
sort of wearing a
modification.
massive witch's hat.
Yeah, and it's
and a
like
big
kind of
long
curved
cloak.
at the back. Like so, I would say I love the
It's a
costume
Holy
design.
Mountain-esque.
I love the performance.
Hodorowski on the old podcast.
Of
Look at us.
Hulda.
I haven't seen Holy Mountain. Cut that out.
What else? Connor?
Nah, okay, look.
I will say I thought the music was on the whole very good. I thought.
The music was
By I think a guy known only as Rob.
DJ Rob.
DJ Rob.
Yeah, it was a wee bit.
It was a bit. It was strange. Like,
Calvin
throughout the
Harris.
whole thing,
It was a wee bit Calvin Harris at points.
throughout the whole thing, we couldn't help but sort of mumble rap over some of it because it would be sort of they'd have that do 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 do.
Yeah.
You know,
Gonna eat a little
and
child
it was
in a
it
tub.
was a sort of weird mixture
Gonna
of
eat
things.
that little human tart.
It would have worked really, really well.
Which makes me believe that there's probably a space out there for a horror film that has mumble rap in it.
I think so.
Well, that music's quite creepy.
I think there's
mumble rap is creepy.
honestly, I think that this
not only
film,
because many of the young mumble rap artists die very young.
Yeah.
It's sort of a haunted genre.
What if it's
Imagine-
like a kind of what's the thing where you say like bloody murder or something 3 times no matter? What if you like said
What if you said Juice
a
WRLD?
mumble rap
so
song 3
you know
times and
Scotch
then they
Snaps.
appear?
You know
Okay.
right?
No? Yeah. Okay.
Candyman.
Yeah. Okay. So we've made some ideas
You see, I think
out
that's.
of the ashes.
I think this film could have been that. It was so.
could have been a wee bit fun.
The thing that annoyed me about this film is that it's so close to being fantastic, and then it.
How cool was the house?
Oh, I apologize, but it
House was
shits
great.
the bed.
Yeah.
It just shits
Yeah,
the
you might be
bed,
right. Yeah.
you know.
We're talking about positive things.
Okay, positive thing. So
There must be something else.
I adored the majority of the cinematography.
Yeah.
I say the majority. I paused the film at one point because there was an excellent shot of the actress from the new It films that was playing the main character. There was a wonderful shot of her in the middle of a forest.
Playing Gretel.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're using a very shallow depth of field on the camera and a very, very wide open f-stop on the camera. Shout out to all my practical cinematographers that actually know what I'm talking about. But basically, they're using the camera in a way where it is pushed to the limits of its abilities. And as such, the edges of the screen are blurred.
Yeah.
Anyone who's seen Homecoming will have recognized this weird blurring at the corners.
Yeah.
Although in Homecoming, I'm pretty sure it's a digital filter because it's too omnipresent. But
I think that's sort of what you're talking about. Really, it made those forest scenes feel very
yes.
haunting.
Yeah, it works so brilliantly for the effect. But the funny thing about it is that it would have been out of pure necessity.
I see.
Not really. They could have got a better, not better, but
cheaper.
Sort of. They could have got a lens more suited for those kind of conditions. They could have used higher ISO settings on their cameras. There's loads of things they could have done, but instead they used an intentional, very high quality film setting.
Yeah.
And a very high f-stop, which caused those then blurrings, and it looks absolutely beautiful. And the shallow depth of field means then that the forest in the background is all blurred away, and they've staged the whole thing to enable this. She's standing about 6 feet away from any trees in the background.
Yeah.
And it's really only her face that's in focus. It's a beautiful shot, and it really gives you that idea of this is our central character. This is her experience that she feels lost in this world. Mm-hmm. Then they shit the bed and they look up into the sky, and you get this very, very sharp, pure everything in focus view of the trees of the forest, and it looks like it's coming straight out of a nature documentary.
Or they've just sort of reached for some stock footage. I don't know. She looks up here.
Whoops, we forgot to film that bit. What do they have on those stock film footage websites? Is there anything that we can get from Storyblocks?
When eyes look up and everything becomes laser sharp. Yeah, we better include that.
You find your specs.
Yeah, so she finds her glasses in between these two shots.
Yeah,
and it just ruins it ruined that kind of continuity for me of that there's a narrative to this, and maybe what they're trying to say, maybe what he's trying to say there is that I don't know, that there's something that we can try to reach for. There's some kind of clarity to gain from the sky, or from trying to escape the forest in a vertical direction. I'm really reaching here, trying to.
I read that, in fairness, as the sharpness of those sort of limb-like treetops signaled that even escaping from above is not an option.
I think that would have been emphasized even more by Blur.
You reckon?
I think that they just could have had a continuity.
You might be right, actually. Yeah.
So
clarity is
what
not
about the
something
story? Was there anything you liked about the story?
No.
Yeah.
Well, so this is something that I wanted to get at. So obviously this is based on.
Would you mind? Can I say just a wee bit more about that?
Absolutely.
I said no, and I felt bad for just saying one word. Being so monosyllabic, I'm not a caveman. I didn't enjoy. I of course enjoyed the story as a thing, as a kind of entity, the fabula. But I hated the sujet. I hated the way the story was told so much that it makes me kind of like the story less. I love witches, and I love the idea of trying to do an adaptation of Hansel and Gretel, but shifting it and placing more of the focus on one of the characters. That all seems like a great idea. That's going to give us a more detailed story.
I think that, we got the funding application version. I feel like there wasn't actually any effort in the story. There's a lot that confuses me. I'm being hard on it,
even with the voiceover.
It was.
Oh no, he's gonna hear this and be like, "Shit, more voiceover."
I need more voiceover.
No, just that. It's touted as this feminist version, but it's kind of weird if you think about the women in the film. Gretel and Hansel's mum goes mad because she can't afford to feed them, and she tries to kill them. So then they leave, and then the little girl who'd been born, the beautiful child that we get in like the what's the word?
pink dress.
No, what's the word for that part of the start of the film?
Flashback.
A flashback?
Is it a flashback?
The opening.
The
I mean,
opening?
it's-
Is there another word for the opening?
The pre-story sequence.
Pre-story sequence? I'll find it.
Framing device.
Framing device. Thank
you.
you. I'm a wee bit slow today.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Was that at the beginning? Did we get that at the beginning?
There's
We get it
there's a
at
wee
the very
There's a wee
beginning.
bit of
God's
pink
sake.
dress.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the frame,
I totally
yeah. So
misremembered that.
anyway, blah, blah, blah. She's having a shite time. She gets help by this enchantress, but then everyone in the town doesn't really trust her, even though she's like giving labor to them with her visions or whatever. And then she starts killing people. So then Hulda, who's her mum, kills her and then goes and lives alone and kills lots of kids. So like the life for, we can't just think about Gretel. Like if you look at all the movie and the film, like feminism's for everyone, guys. So like if we put an intersectional lens on this, like a lot of women are having madness, hunger, family, like murdering, like just a shite time. And just because and then even Gretel like sends Hansel away, and that's like her liberation, but it ultimately means that like to be able to be a woman and afford to eat, you have to like kill or get rid of your family members.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like I'm still doing a kind of a bad job of actually articulating what it is I don't like about this film. I focus too much on specifics. And what's interesting is that, you know, we've all said we don't like the voiceover, and, you know, we've tried to kind of tacitly say we don't like the voiceover because it over explains the film. And yet as I'm
telling this to you, you're like,
talk,
whoa.
I realize that actually the three of us maybe don't understand. You know, we don't have a great
We didn't
grasp.
get much on the film. I think...
Well, excuse me.
Oh, no, I'm just realizing I don't know what the heck happened, you know.
No, but it is really weird because Hulda's using the old woman as a disguise and she's the young woman, but then it doesn't make sense why when she's burning, she like flashes between the young women and the old woman disguise when she was already changed to the young women. Like,
Yeah.
like normally that is a trope in cinema when someone's burning and then you see like they're a witch or a spectral thing and you see the inner what they
form.
are. You see all the possible forms. I'm thinking of in Ghostbusters 2 the painting.
What did you say?
Ghostbusters 2? Remember the painting guy?
Mm-hmm.
You know, stuff like that. But then why do we see this witch's like costume self come out?
Yeah, so
then?
but that's the thing. So I think that the idea is that So I think the thing is that she like never aged. So maybe what the witchcraft has done is like it's made it so that you can either be young or old. Oh,
What?
I get it.
What?
You can either be the maiden, you can either be the crone or the whore, but she's given up her ability to be like either a maiden self or some kind of like real female. So instead, basically, the witchcraft that she has accepted means that she's only able to be like these two aspects of femininity.
Right.
And she can flip-flop between the two by her like wicked ways. But she can't, you know, kind of inhabit a real space. Now, look, that's a reading that I am pulling right out of my back pocket. Mm-hmm. Don't have any idea. I feel like, I don't know.
Traditionally, it's like the maiden, the mother, and the crone. But there's this other one that like the Wicca collective, like theorists and stuff have added in called the Enchantress because they felt like there was a role missing in those archetypes for like another kind of woman who has maybe done the motherhood phase and then is just like living her maidenhood again, but a bit older.
I thought it was the Madonna and the whore.
That's to do with like, you know, like Christian
I see. I'm
mythology.
These things, yeah.
This is interesting stuff. And
or it comes out of that.
So how do we feel about Gretel in this situation? Because this film, as much as it is an adaptation of the Brothers Grimm story, there is this sort of theme of womanhood or coming of age. Is Gretel being introduced or being sort of brought into this sort of problematic world of womanhood, or this sort of fairly regimented notion of womanhood? Because I mean, I can't help but think, throughout the film, at the very beginning, she, her and Gretel and Hansel try and get work with a local man, and eventually his intentions become clearer as he asks Gretel whether or not she's a virgin or not.
Yeah.
And I think there are these notions of things surrounding virginity and surrounding these things that we think of as being rites of passage, I guess.
Yeah. I think that like the intention with making this film now was to offer a focus on Gretel's story, and like traditionally they're the same age. They're maybe like twins, Hansel and Gretel.
I've read that she's usually younger.
So her age was bumped up because they wanted to make Hansel this perennial burden to her.
The perennial liability.
The perennial liability.
The filmmaker stated this explicitly.
Yeah, that was like their interest. So clearly like the text is exploring what it means to be finding your independence as a young woman. And then I think that using the like Wiccan structure of like tropes is effective because this is a sort of Wiccan film. Like it comes out of like a medieval Europe story. It comes out of fear about witches at the time. And then obviously it's chock full of Wiccan symbols.
Did they get the pentagram right?
At the time.
Was it a pentagram?
Yeah. Yes, but it was an inverted one. Yeah.
Do
which basically says that the witch is evil, because like a Wiccan pentagram would be upright and wouldn't suggest any malintent, whereas the inverted one does. So
now, I just want to sort of focus on this, because one of the wee points that's annoying me is that you said at the time, sort of suggesting that this would be set around the time of the Brothers Grimm or something, that this is sort of 1800s.
No, I mean way further back, because like the story has its roots in like old like fables that were passed down word of mouth and stuff. Like I've been reading about the original story, and like the Brothers Grimm, took lots of elements and put them into Hansel and Gretel, but it came from a tradition of like collective stories in Germany in the like medieval and pre-medieval time that often featured cannibalistic witches.
Right.
And
it's my favorite grindcore.
Cannibalistic witches.
So that's like a kind of
But when on earth is this? Look, the thing that really bothers me is that there's a zombie in this film for 2 seconds.
Or is he just an old person? Like
no, he's chasing after Gretel, he's gonna take a bite out of her,
so
and then he gets shot by.
When people are just so hungry, like there's scarcity of food. That he's
you're making me hate this film less, and it feels bad.
The cannibal thing is like
in the original story there is the context of the story is that it takes place during a famine.
Oh my word, he's not a zombie, he's just hungry.
He's just needing a wee snack.
Who is the super cool dude that shoots the zombie? The hunter.
I don't know, but he was one of the first people that was cast, and I don't feel like they do enough with him really.
I still remember.
You remember well.
Justice for the Hunter.
Well, weirdly, I would like to say as well, if we're talking about sort of where in time this is, I think that's one of the film's strengths really, is that it does take place in a sort of vague time frame, that it maybe feels I don't know, 17th century, 18th century maybe, but then you get these insertions of modernity, like the fact that the house is that sort of really imposing triangle.
Yeah,
feels very modernist, and
it does.
And I think, as much as I don't enjoy watching a Tim Burton film, that's one of the things that I do admire in his sort of set design, is that he does inject these kind of old spaces with this sort of
timelessness,
but like a very modern sense of like the sort of terror of jagged angles.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Maybe he used to before he made.
Maybe he used to before he did Alice in Wonderland.
Willy Wonka and the Bullshit Factory. Yeah, no, sorry, Heather. You were talking there. You were talking about how it must be a feminist text, right? Because it's trying to tackle these questions of
I'm saying,
Wiccan
like,
structures of life, and
I'm saying that the reason why it was released this year and called Gretel and Hansel is because the filmmakers wanted to make a feminist spin on the tale. So Daph's asking, is it feminist? What is it exploring this? I think
guess to what extent?
Yes, it is exploring it. Like that's what they're trying to do. Is it doing it in a way that's satisfying? Well, for me, I think of just like all of the female characters in the film and how like touched by cannibalism or hunger or like murdering of children they all are. So it's like
Infanticide.
And yeah.
That one.
Yeah, that too.
Oh yeah, brilliant. Yeah. So yeah.
Sorry, Dav, hold on. What you need to? I'm on the edge of my seat here. You need to tell me the end of that thought.
I'm about to like. I do kind of want you to talk more about it because like
not very good life. That's it.
That's it. That's your reading of this film. Well, you were about to give me an epiphany there. I felt like I was on the. You were about to sell me on this.
Okay, so it's like the period is one where shit's hard. There's a famine. We're all hungry.
Also, Wicca.
All right. But Wicca and like witchcraft exists. Great. What ends can you achieve to escape your means with that? Well, you have to leave all your family, live completely alone, and potentially turn evil and eat children. You're not sure. That's the risk you have to run. Like Gretel at the end, she doesn't know that uncovering this gift in her.
That's not a universal message. That's bullshit.
What?
Is that a universal message
in the film?
No, like in life. Can we take anything? Can we take that message from the film?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So it's like, okay, so you're born in a really difficult era, but don't worry, leave your family, learn skills to cope from a woman who wants to murder your little brother, and murder her, send your brother away, and then use her skills to live off of with the risk of turning evil yourself.
When the going gets tough, infanticide.
So it's kind of like, do you know what? You're having a shit time. You're hungry. Like, eat some kids. I don't know. I feel like that's the feminist message, right? You could always eat some kids if it gets worse.
Go, Duff, go.
Is that not what the message is?
No, I don't think it is. I think there is a sense that Hulda also had this power, but in some way she was corrupted by it. And the ending being sort of fairly open-ended, that Gretel realizes that she has a similar power, if not exactly the same power. Why does Gretel have a similar
power? That's what I'm wondering about as well, like, because...
Are we looking
Hulda got it via her daughter who got it from the Enchantress?
Is this I don't know. Is there something to do with sort of capitalistic feminism to do, like there somewhere?
In what way?
As in like the film is saying, this isn't something that I necessarily agree with, but I feel like it's saying money, power, it depends on what you do with it, man.
Oh my god, yeah. I totally think that's
Maybe
what it
that's
is, because it's like, nah, because I think at the end it's like, Gretel got swag now. Like, that's the empowering image. Like, she gets the big modernist house.
Yeah.
And the finger tats.
Yeah.
But I can't help but be like, oh, you loved your wee brother, and now you're never going to see him again. Is that... What, no emotions and no connections and no one being close to you? Is that feminism?
Alienating the self.
Alienating your... And it's not because she wanted to. Let's remember, she didn't go, oh, Mum, I'm sick of you. Really want to go out and have my own house. Oh, Mum, you're always telling me to chop potatoes. Like, she was quite happy at home. Her mum just pulled an axe on her and was like, get the hell out of my house. So, like, it's not like we even know that that's Gretel's one wish, to live alone in the woods. She did everything she could to survive, but we have no idea as the audience that this is actually her dream. It was the witch that put the idea into her to tap into this sense of hers. The only times we saw Gretel happy was like when she was kind of hanging with Hansel and they do that pig noise at each other. That pig noise that they all do was the only connection between people that conferred like some kind of joy in this otherwise miserable world. And the only people we see it done between is Hansel and Gretel, and maybe one time with their mum or something.
Think so.
Okay,
I think she's just mad axe woman.
She does do it once.
Really?
Yeah, she does.
She does. So basically, they cope with this horrible world with each other. So really, like, by being together. So really, are we to be satisfied that she's...
Can I jump into this?
You know what I mean?
Is that okay? Because, right, Dav, do you need to stay on target? You're hosting
Does
this week.
anyone agree with me?
I don't know, like, do you think there's any more to that thought? I think there was something.
Do you agree though? Right? Like, where's Gretel's joy? Like, we spend so much time with her, but the only thing that I saw that brought her joy was Hansel.
No, I do definitely agree. Yeah. So you're saying that what the film is kind of saying is that, you know, you can either have power or you can have joy.
But you can't have both.
But you can't have both, which is kind of a bullshit message.
And that's sort of like, and it chooses power. So it is kind of like a, you know, capitalist feminism, isn't it?
Sort of weird, but it's also so
sort of,
strange.
or like it's impossible to find. I don't know. Like maybe it's impossible to find happiness within a certain structure, namely the structure of sort of patriarchal order, I guess.
See, okay, so then this is my thing, right? All of this is great, but are we just kind of reading tea leaves? No,
I think
in my mind, that's what we do on this podcast.
Don't you think that was brilliant when I brought up the pig noise? Like, I brought up the text.
No, yeah.
I brought up the text.
You were grounding this in the text.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. And you're talking about how you can have this kind of individual character and how there can be impacts on the specific characters within the film, which I think is totally, absolutely there. But if we then try to relate that to anything wider, when we try to relate that to any kind of ism, whether that be, Marxism, socialism, or feminism, I don't know, posthumanism, let's just tack that one on there. I think it starts
Sometimes
to
you just
fall.
have to do things for yourself. You know?
It has to fall apart a little bit because, and so this is the thing. If I may coin a term that probably already massively exists, but I'm not going to Google it. I feel like this film, if it is attempting to be a kind of feminist text, then it can only be called epic feminism. Mm-hmm. This is kind of trope level feminism,
So we're not talking epic theatre here. As in the
so
Brecht.
I mean
I don't know.
It would be related to that in that you need to use certain identifiable tropes in order to have the whatever effect that Brecht was having, and certainly I feel like for me I was brought out of identifying with the characters because things were being delivered in such broad strokes. But we can talk about how Gretel being given this power means that she has to deny herself certain pleasures, which is kind of a wee bit of a second wavy feminist type of thing. It's saying that when you seize the power, you must abandon what we might have dubbed like feminine connections, feminine affective connections to other human beings. Mm-hmm. We could reach for that, but it is a reach because there's not enough on-screen action to give us a glimpse of a world that is sufficiently complex enough to suggest that there are, that there are options. That
I don't know enough. Like,
we don't know these people.
I really don't know these people, but all I can do is look at what I do know about Gretel. If I'm to answer, is it feminist? And I'm like, well, she did some choices with the choices she had, but I don't know if they were ones that were most in the interest of her happiness. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, and
are these people that we're seeing, are these human figures? I don't even think they're
real human figures, actually. And we keep hearing about like the big dark world, but they never show us it. And that's something that's really strange. Like,
the big bad world.
The big bad world that every single character, like disparate characters, mention, it's the big bad world.
If fucking Milton Keynes is down the road, like it would be so upsetting. What is this big bad world? Because if everything's as crap
God forbid,
as this,
garden cities.
Yeah, if there's London down the train track or something, then it's like, well, what, how is that even working? Also, why is it set in Britain? Or a Britain-ish type area, even though they're called Gretel and Hansel, like because everyone else is called like Paul.
Well, okay. I mean, I don't know how we're doing for time right now.
We're on 40 minutes.
Okay.
The accents.
Oh, believe me,
so I had a couple of thoughts about sort of silly questions at the end. We do silly questions at the end, but why wasn't the house made of gingerbread?
because it was
Like in the story.
because it was made in Denmark.
They don't
It was
have
such
gingerbread.
It was such a
Danish
Denmark
house, wasn't it? Yeah, rich
Yeah.
Denmark.
Maybe-
It's weird because it's in Ireland.
On that note, I do want to ask, why this story? Like, why? Because
Why
the,
did they
it's in
change
public
it?
domain.
the tale. I mean, I guess that is probably the case. But if you are making a film about
Free.
based on Hansel and Gretel, then that story already has thematic
Resonance.
resonances. Yeah, it's a
Don't be
children's
greedy.
story, but I mean, you can read the pitfalls of greed. In it,
Yeah.
I guess if only if it's as simple as just telling kids don't ask for too much sweets, because you know what happens when you get too much sweets, you get put in an oven by a witch, that kind of thing.
I love how we try
Also,
to
that's how
like-
they're
educate
drawn.
children.
It teaches you stranger danger, I guess, as
I suppose
well.
it does, yeah. But
Wee bit.
clearly those have that story has sort of, it has the makings of some film to do with, I don't know, greed or power or something.
Do you know what? Again, this is why this film pisses me off, because it's so fucking close to being incredible that it annoys me. Because there was a point in the film where the witch looks at Gretel and says, like, essentially, look, you know what's going on here. You know I'm a witch. I know that you have the capacity to become a witch. You know that in order for me to do what I do, I need to eat kids. But I'm telling you this. See if you get on the bandwagon, the kid killing bandwagon, you're going to love it. It's going to be class. And because there's a bit in the film where...
That bit is really cool.
There's a bit in the film where Gretel starts talking to Hansel and she's like, yeah, I don't know,
He's a bit annoying.
Lady Witch seems pretty cool. I'm kind of down with this. And if that had been the film, if there had been a switch from the halfway point where Gretel had just gone, you know what? Why would I hold on to that stuff? Why
But
not
I
just
feel like
be
that's
a
what
witch?
they think they've made. I think they think they've made that film.
Then be an ally.
What do you mean?
You know, Gretel needs to be an ally to, this isn't
To
the
the
fucking...
witch.
They're not the Sith Lords. Like, they don't need to kill one another in order to, gain witchy powers.
Yeah,
it's quite
well,
clear.
that's the thing. Like, she ultimately does kill the witch to save Hansel, but then sends Hansel away. I'm really confused about
It's messaging.
the message. I don't know what the message is. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I guess there is that thing of like, each generation of each wave of feminism has, been in opposing dialectics with what has come before it. I guess there is that. If we were again to really reach with this film, we could say that, the ethos of the main witch of the movie is then supplanted by a revolutionized ethos of Gretel at the end. But again, that is massively
she's trying to
reaching.
like purify the like vision from before, because she's like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be tainted like she was or whatever.
Exactly.
I don't know.
I think at the end she says, with great power comes great responsibility.
No, Uncle Ben says that. He pulls up his little car.
Oh yeah, I like that
Remember,
bit.
Peter, I mean Gretel.
But yeah, so in the same sort of way of why is a house not made of gingerbread? I'm like, why don't they do so many things in this film that could have just made it stand out, could have made it really fun? And
But to me, the house does stand out and is fun, and the crony witch does stand out and is fun. Like, it's the justifications for their choices, maybe. Like, those two things are so symbolic, like the witch and the house, but they don't really do anything with them.
right.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's still the same story of, nah, fuck the witch, kill her.
Yes, I
And
hate
also the house is still the same, like the exterior conceals a cannibal witch on the inside. So whether it's
Exactly.
made of gingerbread or not, it's still serving the same purpose. So they made
Don't trust successful
big
women.
stylistic changes
Oh, I think we just cracked it.
without
trust successful
changing
women.
the story to reflect them in
Yeah.
those aspects. But then they changed the story in other aspects, but kept the style the same for those. So
This film would be like if if a young I don't know, a talented young author who happens to be, identified as female, happened upon the house of Ayn Rand, and Ayn Rand was like, if you want to sell books, you need to break a few eggs, you know?
The old saying.
And then at the end, the new author like bludgeoned Ayn Rand with a copy of Das Kapital.
Oh no, do you know what it's like? Yeah, it's like an unemployed young woman meets an old woman and she's like, hey, want to join my pyramid scheme? And then the young woman's like, don't know if I like them. And she's like, no, it's cool. Yeah, like it fucks up when other people join, but if you join, you'll be second in command. And if you get more people to join, then you won't get fucked up. So you just need to do what I teach you and then you won't be on the bottom, right? It's pretty hard out there. Join my pyramid scheme. And then she goes like, no, I'm going to kill you. Gonna start my own pyramid scheme, or like I feel like that's what happens. It's like she takes.
I'm gonna take over this pyramid scheme.
She learns the lessons from her, and it's like, I can't believe you would do that. Like you would.
This film is actually just a social network.
Your pyramid
in which
scheme,
form?
just like you're evil, and then she's like, my pyramid scheme now.
Yeah.
It's just moved another step.
There's one wee bit that I wanted to just chuck in here on, throw on the fire, which is, and so we have talked a lot about, this film is, it's through Oz Perkins is doing its best to try and discuss some kind of feminism.
He's trying to have a thinky thought. He's
trying his best.
Yeah.
And maybe he shouldn't have tried, or maybe he should have, I don't know. But the thing about it is the associations of feminism to witchcraft, to the kind of eco-mother imagery. I've been reading some Stacey Alamo, who also uses Donna Haraway to discuss these ideas. The difficulty or the problems of trying to associate, feminism with goddess culture. It has these inherent shortcomings because it tries to relate female bodies to magic that in a very literal interpretation of that magic simply doesn't exist, so it instead of trying to relate and deal with real female problems, that are incumbent upon real female bodies, access to sexual health care, instead it's trying to discuss the empowerment of the feminine through relation to magic, which is actually just obscuring our access to the reality of female bodies. And I don't know, I thought in relation to this film, it was similarly playing that same trick of, women's cycles are related to the moon type logic, and trying to create these, this idea of female power as being something that is dislocated from reality and has to rely on otherworldly properties in order to find its strength. I thought like at the end, if Gretel had been able to, solve the situation just through her own knowledge and instead of having to relate to magic, if she had access to magic but chose instead to just use her own intellect, I don't know, maybe that's kind of a regressive, or could be somehow a capitalist reading or something of a possible rewrite of this film. But yeah, to me it just seemed a little bit of a regressive film, not really equipped with the kind of engagements with feminist politics and body politics that are required in 2020. But I don't know. Look, that was my 2 cents. I know we have a dyed in the wool witch at the table. So I don't know if I'm stepping on some toes here, or if you think that my reading is kind of regressive, or because in fairness, a lot of the stuff that I'm reading right now has come from 1980, where people were critiquing that kind of eco-feminist connection.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's important to remember that the whole idea of a witch and what they were up to is a very much historical thing that people have looked at through archives and lists about women that were killed for this. And so the interest that came up in terms of theorizing that for feminism was how do we kind of reclaim that identity, I think. And a lot of the things that women were up to, weren't magic, but were interpreted as magic. So, foraging for herbs, like anything kind of self-sufficient,
Right.
using like the phases of the moon to figure out your period, so that, and your cycles, so that
Right.
you
At least
so
you
that
had
you
a
didn't have
handle
a
on it.
baby. Like
Oh,
so
yeah.
it was related to like sexual health actually. So if you think about how the symbolic aspect of that then, and moon phases and that kind of thing, it's sort of like paying heed to women in the past who used these we read them now, tools for liberation. So I guess a more contemporary feminism would look at what tools a woman alive today could use
Right.
for their liberation. But I would argue that tools that rely solely on the land and empowering you to figure out things about yourself without any other information from the state or whatever are important, and are going to be increasingly important with the climate crisis. So I don't know, like I enjoy.
Interesting.
I think also it's like the idea of that kind of knowledge being spread,
Something
in
to
sort of
reclaim.
oral, in an oral sense as well, or in a sort of holistic sense.
Holistic medicine. So if I can give you an example, like I promise you, like in the past, using lavender oil would have been seen as like a hippy dippy thing, whereas like science now backs up the fact that it, you know, affects the chemistry of your brain and has a relaxing effect. So a lot of oral history, a lot of word of mouth, holistic health practices weren't part of like science
Or
and
established
discourse,
bodies of
and
medicine,
it's
I guess.
established. So these like misaligned things were discredited, but then science can catch up with some of them.
Right.
So there's fully leaning into all in like a fascist way, which I'm not for, but I think it's about reclaiming like oral histories, oral knowledge between women who were punished for it, and were doing their best to cope with what they could find and what they had to hand, and kind of the information that they found out for themselves.
So, did you have any more to say on that?
Well, I am actually really inspired by what you just said, and I think
cool.
again, I think that there's one more time, Oz Perkins, if you're listening, you really messed up.
Well, so Gretel didn't do anything like that, and neither
No, but I think that there's
did the
like,
witch, did she?
there's a chance for so what you're talking about there sounds like a missed opportunity in this film, especially
I
with
agree.
like the mushrooms.
Oh yeah, exactly. So she does go foraging, but it like,
but she messes it up.
yeah.
Whereas, you know, what you're saying is that the likelihood is, not the likelihood is, but, you know, there was a possibility there for Oz Perkins to say, no, like, you guys need to understand there was a knowledge passed on mostly through women, and, you know, house.
I find it very strange that she didn't know those mushrooms were bad, right? Because it's not like she grew up in a inner city, whatever that would have been in this era. She was living in a country
wasn't coming
house.
from Milton Keynes.
She was going walks, I presume, up until the age of 16.
The township of Londinium.
She was eating food up until the age of 16. It wasn't coming from a Sainsbury's, it was coming from the forest as well. I doubt
Get
very
you
much
to
that
Sainsbury's.
she didn't know how to forage mushrooms. So that's a way to say, you know, she's vulnerable in the forest. That's what he wanted to say.
She wouldn't have
But she wouldn't have been.
She would have had
so
to be
actually,
self-sufficient.
he doesn't really give
was-
us this character's liberation, because he takes away some things that I think she would have already been skilled at.
There's a materialist feminist version of this film that would have existed and would have been very, very cool. It actually would have been amazing if Gretel had had knowledge of those mushrooms and knowledge of the, you know, the land and you know, the sky around the witch's house, and the witch was using magic, you know,
For that, yeah.
No. If the witch had been using, you know, Hollywood style witch magic, you know, magic that is the kind of magic that was used to victimize women, you know, the image of magic that was drawn up by, religious male religious organizations.
Whereas Gretel was just like navigating the land.
In the words of Eminem, they really did create a monster.
Yeah. The monsters that were created by the Catholic Church, amongst others, to demonize women who were essentially just practicing a form of hedge science.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And if Gretel had then just had the ability to, develop poisons and stuff. There is a bit of that. She is able to develop poisons to try and attack the witch. And when the witch drinks the poison, she goes, oh, that's really good poison. I just want to know why you did it. Which I thought was a good bit of the film.
Yeah, the witch is so cool.
But there was, I think there was just a missed opportunity. There was a lack of clarity of the themes being discussed,
If only he'd picked up a Silvia Federici book. I don't know. That would have been something.
Who's that?
Well, there's this notion of witches being created as sort of monsters, or sort of having their sort of, as you put it, hedge science misunderstood or understood as sort of satanic.
Yeah.
Is posited by Silvia Federici.
An
Italian
cool.
Marxist feminist writer.
Oh, very interesting that.
It's about a history. There's a book called Caliban and the Witch.
Oh, yeah.
You might have come across it.
I've heard of that, yeah.
But yeah, she talks a lot about.
Yeah, me too. I've actually got 3 copies of it.
Wow.
I was reading it.
But you haven't read any of them?
Oh, really? Shit.
3, but he's not read any.
No, I don't have any. That sounds really, really great.
Joking.
I really want to read that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've already discussed her ideas, essentially. But,
I see.
Yeah.
What, in terms of I just like inherently get them?
But I think,
is that what you mean?
But I think it's like going back to this idea that they have to kill the witch. They have to kill Hulda.
A wee bit sad, isn't it?
I mean, it's sad because Hulda, at the end of the day, represents a thing that isn't real necessarily. She represents the sort of monster created by society, really. Mm-hmm. There is a sense that she's been made into a monster and then sort of became this monster, this sort of child-eating monster.
But she's the only person in the film we know anything about, because she's the only one who tells us something about herself, and she's the only person who, it's not that important, but, they pass the Bechdel test in that, she turns to Gretel and says, like, look, I'm looking and hiring you for an apprenticeship program. If you stick around with me, I'll train you how to be a witch. And look,
I'll be your patron, and like I won't make you sleep with me like that old gross man at the start.
Exactly. Like, I know you're going to have to get your hands really dirty, but trust me, it is worth it. I
feel like just even with the suggestion of that, he's like, yes, box ticked, my new feminist film, like Gretel and Hulda, but it doesn't happen.
Why didn't you just make that film?
So is that how we would fix it?
All those kids in the basement, the infanticide, I didn't give a shit about those kids.
Do you know what?
Fuck those kids.
Yeah,
we don't know who they are.
What we
don't know
could
anything
just
about
have
them.
is that
They're children.
Think of the children.
Somebody please think of the children.
She has like non-determinate like blood and guts that she makes into food every day. Like, we could still have that scene, but we don't need to see the ghost children that it comes from. She could just be like, we don't talk about that yet. Like, do you know what I mean? And then also, like, Gretel could still send Hansel back on the horse. She could be like, right, away home to Bum, like, because I realise now that she'll be able to feed you. It was just me and you she couldn't feed, and I've got to grow up now and find my own way, and I'm going to do this apprenticeship. Like, it might be a bit bad sometimes, but...
Right, smash cut. I've got a different version of this film.
Okay, go on.
All right, so first 15 minutes of the film, we have Mum, Axe, Gretel, Hansel, go. Second 15 minutes of the film, we have awesome house, spooky basement, witchcraft. Gretel, I'm going to hire you for an internship, and you're going to get your B.Tech in witchcraft through me, right? So we're half an hour into the movie. 45 minutes into the movie, Hansel gets sent the fuck away because, I don't know, maybe Gretel saves him as a last kind of act of companionship, and kind of get things between her and the witch become a wee bit frayed, but not too bad.
Those kind of attachments aren't going to serve you.
They're not going to serve you, but, look, you're here for the witchcraft. Training montage, she becomes an amazing witch, and they go around killing kids. Fantastic.
Dragon slabs of meat.
Coming into the third act of the film, smash cut a few years forward, the two of them have both got black fingertips. They're all, they've got their blackout tattoos and their Icelandic Bjork protection symbol on the side of their arms. They're all looking awesome. But they have not aged, whereas Hansel comes back super aged.
Oh, I love it.
With the hunter, and comes back to kill them as now witch hunters. And it's now up to Gretel and the witch to protect themselves, use their spells, and the last act of the film is just like a very minute, drawn-out battle between, old witch hunting with crossbows and flame versus, kind of magic. And in the end, she has to kill Hansel and move on with her life. The hunter kills the witch, which gets rid of that solitary witch problem without Gretel having to translate it. And maybe actually the hunter is killed by Gretel, and then she lets Hansel go away one more time.
That's
and he
amazing.
walks away into the forest, and
But
they're
can
like,
Hansel be like in his 60s? So he's really aged. How cool would that be? That's the movie I wanted to see.
Right. Fixed it.
I mean, if only your dad, if only your dad was Norman Bates. I guess.
If only my dad was Norman Bates. I could have
I've
made
only
this film.
had the privilege.
The Hollywood.
But what about the accents, though?
Yes.
What accent?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
So how many accents would you have in your movie, Connor? Like 20, or is that? Do you think maybe 30 would be?
Would
a better
every
number?
character just have a different accent?
I don't know what you're talking about. This accent is this.
Hello, I am here to kill the witch.
I smell cake.
I like cake. I really like cake.
What was the deal with
Oh,
that?
put some more kids on the Barbie. Terrible. Yeah, that
Awful.
I feel like it
This
was
is witchcraft. You must stop with the witchcraft.
nice.
We'll put a stop to that.
I guess they just wanted it to be, a wee bit of something for
knows?
everyone.
Yeah,
Who knows?
maybe.
But I just
Blimey. Quite a lot of witchcraft going on up there.
Okay, now I'm stopping it. My dad listens to this. He's going to be so upset.
what?
But no, he doesn't listen to
A wee reference to Welsh culture. He's gonna lap it up.
goodbye.
Are you witches?
Witches. There are quite a lot of Welsh witches, apparently. But
Fantastic.
Anyway. Okay, well, so I hope everyone is really excited for the Brothers Grimm expanded cinematic universe that we're about to get.
That's not a thing.
Oh, yeah. No, it's not a thing.
Oh,
No.
thank God.
If we're about to wrap up, I really wanted to wrap up with this review I found on Roger Ebert, the late film critics, sort of still ongoing film reviews site.
You
It is a good site.
him.
It is
Usually is a good site. Usually they give these films a rating out of 4 stars.
Okay. Do you want us to guess what it got?
Yes. What did this one get?
2 stars.
2?
3.5.
Piss off.
It talks a lot about sort of
slapped.
how moody it is. And I guess
Yeah, people kept saying
Do you
it's
think
so
it's
good
moody?
because the atmosphere.
because atmosphere.
Atmosphere.
But I wanted to read this out. It will almost quote. It will almost certainly join Color Out of Space as one of the first new cult favorites of the new decade.
Burn it
been
with
good.
fire.
I know what he means though, because like I love Color Out of Space and the aesthetics of this film, and the cinematography was also what enticed me. So like I get it, but come on, you can't just for cinematography alone be like it's a new cult film. Really? Like that's all it takes?
Yeah.
I'm going to watch it
Surely
again
the
on
story
mute.
needs to be good as well.
I'm going to watch it again on mute with Earl Sweatshirt as the only soundtrack.
with mumble rap
yeah.
over it.
Yeah. Right, next week.
Yes, who's the next week? That
It's
would
me
be
next
you.
week.
Yeah, what are you doing? What you got
Next-
for us, Connor?
next
So what have you
week-
got in your magic bag?
We are going to, again, return to the question of horror and comedy.
Oh, shit.
And we're going to look at One Cut of the Dead because Shane Carruth hasn't made any other films to distract me from finally looking at One Cut of the Dead. And yeah, we're going to look at that question to see if something can be scary and funny at the same time, or if maybe there's some relationship between horror and comedy. I think it all relates to the game of peekaboo, but we'll discuss that more next week.
Look forward to that. And so from us, it's goodbye.
Goodbye.
Like and
And
subscribe.
don't forget to like and subscribe
Subscribe.
for more hot takes on horror films and things that are not horror films as well. I don't know.
No, absolutely not.
Spooky films.
Spooky films.
Thank you, everyone.
We love you. Have a nice day. Probably daytime, isn't it? Bye.